Hi guys, it's Ryan here with Sigma Survival, and today's video is a challenge video. So I am going shopping, that is the challenge, well, kind of. Today I'm going to be giving myself and my girlfriend a challenge to pick out 10 survival items that you have to grab on the go quickly, no pre-planning, just walking into a general sort of purpose shop and just grabbing some items. She's not really as survival minded as what I am, but she is still pretty good when it comes to these things. So we're going to compare our choices at the end of it. So yeah, stay tuned. It's going to be fun. The scenario is that we're completely unprepared, caught out, and there's been a disaster of some sort, and we need to pick 10 items which basically we can survive with. So it's kind of a bit of a bug out video actually. So you've got to pick 10 items that you would be happy to bug out with, or at least that's what I'm doing, and that's what my girlfriend's doing to make it interesting. So we're going to be comparing each of our items. So we're at Home Bargains. It's a shop here in the UK. It's a general purpose shop. You get all sorts of things here, so it's a good option. Okay, so there's 3 rules to this challenge. The first one is that you've got to buy something to contain all of the items, so a bag. The second rule is that you can't duplicate items, so you can't buy 2 or 3 or 4 of the same item. You just one of each. So the third rule is that you've got to get it all into a hand basket. You can't put it into a trolley because you've got to be able to carry it on your person because it's for survival. So yeah, those are the 3 rules. So yeah, let's go and have some fun.
I'm just in the shop trying to get my items, trying to do it quick so Ryan doesn't have to wait too long. Let's see what I can.
We've just finished the challenge. It was a lot of fun, I won't lie. This is Beth, it's my girlfriend. We've just finished the challenge. We just thought we'd come away from the shop to film this bit because it gets a bit awkward, talking sort of in front of people and stuff. But yeah, it was quite difficult actually, because you've got to work with what is available, and you're capped at 10 items. So if you give this a go, you'll know what we mean. But we're going to go over the items that we chose, and yeah, just have a little talk about it really.
I think both of us went round and we got to the same kind of aisle where we were like, oh, this is quite hard.
Yeah.
10 items, and started switching things out then, didn't we?
What were your priorities? Like, what was going through your mind? Like, what you needed? Like,
I wasn't 100% sure really what I was going to get. I didn't know what was going to be in there. Had some ideas that I wanted things to carry water, some kind of shelter. I thought maybe they might have a sleeping bag in there, but I wasn't sure. Something to do with fire. I was angling at matches, but I tried not to have too much in mind because I didn't want to stop myself getting from certain things in there. Did you have anything?
Yeah, so I just noted down 3 things you said straight away. So you mentioned cover from like the elements, almost like shelter. What else did you say? You said combustion of some sorts of fire.
And water.
Some kind of container for water. So when I went in there, my kits generally are based on the 5 C's, and then you can go even further than that with like 10 C's or 15 C's that Dave Canterbury, a famous sort of survivalist, talks about. I didn't mention anything like that to Beth beforehand because I didn't want to cotton in on and us picking the same things. But basically, my priorities initially were some kind of cutting tool. That was the most important thing.
Oh yeah, that was one of mine actually.
Yeah. Some kind of cover from the elements and means of keeping my body heat in. Combustion, so fire. A container of some sort to boil and purify water, and also to carry water. And then some kind of cordage. Those are the 5 key items that will keep you alive. And then thereafter, there's other items that are useful that I chose. So, yeah, should we go through the list of what we got?
Yeah. So I went in first.
What was the first thing you grabbed?
The first thing, well, obviously I went round the store in order, so it wasn't that this was most important. But the first thing I saw was cohesive bandage, which is kind of like the vet wrap. Like what is it called? Like the compression.
It is, yeah. So it's self-adhesive sort of stretch bandage. It's actually really good. It's a really good option to have for first aid, that is.
Yeah, we've used it for multiple things like recently as well.
Yeah.
So I thought
it's in multiple kits that we've got actually.
So I thought that would be a good item, one for first aid, and later on when we showed each other what we'd got, you actually said I could use it as like cordage or something, and
yeah, because
which I hadn't thought of.
Finding cordage was a real struggle in there. I wanted something like twine that I could also double up as like fire tinder, but I couldn't find anything other than strimmer wire.
I think there probably was, but we were just kind of rushed.
We were rushed as well. But one thing I will say, yeah, so you could have cut the bandage into strips potentially, because your cutting tool was a pair of scissors.
Ruining it.
Sorry. Not ruining it, we're just disclosing it.
Yeah.
But you could have easily cut that into smaller strips and twisted it and made it really strong, and made cordage that way.
Yeah. Also, if you can hear that sound in the background, it has started raining, so
yeah,
hopefully it doesn't affect the sound too much. My next item that I got, we were still in the kind of like medical section, so I picked up some hydrocortisone cream, which usually, if we'd have done this video kind of like a year ago, I wouldn't have picked that up because I never really value it. But every time we go shopping or we're in a certain shop and we see it, you always get a tube and you always say it's so good to have this on you and blah blah blah. And
not on me, but it's so good to stock it, isn't it?
Yeah.
As a prepper, and as with the medical trend, I've got hydrocortisone is the one cream that like it's a first line for all skin issues. Anyway, go on.
So I kind of picked that up thinking, oh yeah, that'll be like, I'll look good getting that. But realistically, for the kind of challenge that it was, is that the first thing that you should be picking up in like a kind of bug out situation? I'm not sure I would pick it again as like my 10 items, but I did because there was time pressure and I knew you were waiting in the car to do yours, so I just stuck with it.
I think that if you're bugging out and you've got to get from point A to point B, like skin irritation and stuff like that will make you miserable. So it's not a bad idea, but in the hierarchy of needs, it's kind of not as urgent. But it's the first thing you see, like you go through and it's all the medicines and stuff, isn't it? Yeah.
Next thing I picked up was multivitamins. Again, that's another thing that I never would have picked up, but we kind of have discussed before. And I kind of regret getting it, really, but I did pick up multivitamins. At the very least, it could be like an item that I swap with someone else and trade.
So it's one of the items that we have we have like probably like a year's supply that we can dip into because of the global threat of like famine, food crises and stuff like that. Like, it's nice to have multivitamins and minerals available.
But realistically, a bug out option, it just wasn't.
Yeah,
like, especially if something's just happened, that's not really important, is it? Straight off.
If it was a multivitamin and mineral, I will say that if it was a radiation emergency, that could have been useful. Because the minerals will stop the radioactive isotopes from absorbing into your body cells and killing you off even quicker. But
why have you got your seatbelt on still?
I don't even know. I didn't even think of that. We're parked up, nice and safe.
So then I moved up the aisle and I found insect repellent. Again, probably not something that I would have picked because I'm quite lucky and generally bugs, well, kind of like mosquitoes and stuff, they don't really bother me. They usually like eat my family or so I wouldn't have picked that myself, but you've spoke about it before and the importance. And if you're kind of in damp conditions and you're having to camp out somewhere, I thought that could be a problem. So I opted for, there was a few different options. There was like a spray, like a cream gel thing. I opted for bands just because I thought if you are having to hide out from people, it might be less obvious than like a spray, which might like travel a bit and people will smell a bit more easy.
And it sounds like a silly option to a lot of people, because obviously the hierarchy of needs, you know, you might be thinking, well, why is that important? But I mean, I picked up eucalyptus oil. So one of my key ideologies for Swab is to have multi-purpose items, and eucalyptus oil has multiple medical uses. It's also a really good insect repellent, and I believe it's not harmful to like dogs and whatnot. Like, whereas like peppermint oil, which can also be used in similar ways, actually that's the one that dogs are allergic to, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think they're supposed to have.
Yeah, so eucalyptus oil, we've got a dog in the family, so for me, like, eucalyptus oil is way more.
I mean, you don't want them sniffing it, but
you don't want them sniffing it, but like Beth said, if you are being pursued or you're in an escape and evasion situation, smelling like a eucalyptus plant might not be the most ideal.
Yeah.
But but I actually ended up putting that back because it's so hard to prioritise what you need.
We did pick items and put things back and switch them out. I actually ended up with like 11 or 12 items and just had miscounted and had to like put things back. But so then I kind of got to like the garden camping aisle. The next thing that I got was the metal flask thing. My first thought was that I could boil water in it, but I'm not really sure I can do that with the metal. But at the very least I could put boiling water into it. I'm someone that gets really cold, so I could even use it as like a hot water bottle at night as well, like, because the water doesn't have to be permanently hot. I'd wrap it in like, anyway, that's not really a use, but it's a water container.
Yeah, it's a water. Did it have an insulation?
I don't know.
To it. If it has an insulation to it, then I don't think that you would be safe to boil it, but boil water inside it because it's obviously insulated, and I think it can like blow up and stuff, but it's fine. Like, you will.
I don't know if it was just like a metal water bottle, or I don't know.
But you also mentioned bleach, that you was talking about picking up bleach potentially.
I saw a video a few weeks ago that you watched.
Yeah.
And one of the guys said about bleach and that you could, clean water and stuff with it.
Yeah. So
I mean, I personally wouldn't know how to do that. or what quantities?
It's like, yeah, so basically there's ratios that you have to follow. I think it's like, I don't even know myself, it's in millilitres though, so it's...
So I didn't end up picking that up. Well, I ran out of items, so I just thought I'd just chuck that off my list.
But one of the things that I always carry, like, generally speaking, on me is water purification tablets. Yeah. And that bottle was probably like 1 litre to 2 litres, which means that we easily, with the EDC that I carry, could have purified water but, you know, let's say we didn't have any kit, that's sort of the challenge.
Yeah. So I also picked up one of the 10 litre water carriers, which I think you got the same, didn't you?
Yeah.
Because I just thought that was good for carrying water. Picked up matches, obviously for making fires. Just thought there was a lot of them in there. I can't remember how many's in the box. There was a lot of them, so I thought that might last longer than like a lighter and the gas and the lighter go in, or...
You just got to keep them dry.
Yeah, you just got to keep them dry, which is what I thought about. Something else that I got, it was really hard to find a cutting tool. So I was looking for like a knife or like a multi-tool or something, and they didn't have any of it.
It's true, yeah.
No, we looked like all over. So I ended up with some multi-purpose scissors. They looked quite sharp and they had a few different functions. And I thought, with a struggle, I could probably like, I don't know, do like carve wood or something at the very least.
It's got a sharp edge on it, so it's, you know, it has got some purposes that I looked for. I had in mind, I was like, okay, maybe I can get a multi-pack of kitchen knives, you know, get like a nice steak knife in there with like some sharp edged knives as well. But there was nothing. I thought, damn, like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll get into what I chose in a minute. I'm just going over.
Yeah, and then the last two things I got was a sleeping bag, because we were lucky, the time of year that we're doing this, they did have them in this store. So I picked up the sleeping bag, and the next thing I saw, I thought about a tent, but I didn't want to get a tent, and I didn't see the tent. So I was walking around looking for something that I could use as a shelter, because I've got the sleeping bag for warmth, but I wanted something that I could shelter with. So I ended up finding the outdoor kind of waterproof furniture covers, and it looked quite big, doesn't it? Looked pretty big, and I thought that would be good as a shelter option. Probably easier to chuck like leaves and branches and stuff over it and conceal it a bit better, and it wouldn't stand out as much as a tent. And on top of that, I could use it to carry things in, and just keep things dry, and just a few different uses really.
Yeah, like if I would have had that item, I would potentially cut it open slightly, potentially, so it's more like a tarp, and then roll my things in it as a carrying system. You know, you could even use your bandage for that, like with the cordage. So you'd have like a pack that could be, you know, contain it all. But then you could also use it as like a bivvy bag. Like you could put your sleeping bag inside and keep that sleeping bag drier than what you would have done.
Yeah, because even if you're not putting it up and trying to make kind of like a shelter from it, you can just lie it over you and protect you that bit more.
Depending on how big it is, but yeah.
Oh, I think it's pretty big.
But you could also use it for like wilderness shelters and stuff as well. So yeah.
Things that I almost got, I nearly got some like flip-flop sandal things. That was because you always go on about...
Yeah, I've got, so in my long range survival pack, I've got flip-flops so that I can air my feet out at the end of the day, and it's a spare last line sort of shoe.
Well, I put those back. Again, that was like something that you'd influenced that I never would have picked before. I put those back because they just weren't a priority. And I put the bleach, but I didn't get the bleach. I'm sure I put something else back, but I can't remember what it was. But if I had to swap something or change my mind on something, I think the multivitamins wouldn't have been... I don't know, a few of them I probably wouldn't... I wish that I did it without you influencing me. Like if we'd have done this a year ago, I would have picked... I feel like I would have had a better, like, more options.
I think that because we do a lot of like the prepping as a couple, so like, you know, because we share like our finances and stuff, when I want to buy preps, I'm like, Beth, we need this. And
yeah, I feel like I was into it and stuff before, and I had my own ideas on things, but because you know more about it, I've took a bit of a backseat and just kind of let you do things. So now I feel like that's really influenced my
I think that
options.
there's a key lesson to be drawn from it, is that there's different circumstances and scenarios and types of survivors. So you're thinking from a prepping mindset of like, okay, long term, or we could do with multivitamins or hydrocortisone or this. But you did pick some really useful items that may not be useful straight away, but if you're bleeding or something, that bandage would save your life. It's difficult because the shop itself didn't have specifically everything that you might want.
I think my favourite items was the shelter option that I got, because I thought that could be used in a lot of ways, and probably the water carrier.
10-litre water carrier, yeah, it's not too bad.
Do you want to go over what you got now?
Yeah, definitely. So I got, the first item I picked up actually was, as you walk into the shop, they've got like, because it's getting into spring here in the UK, like they have like fire type stuff. So they had like an instant fire log that you just set fire to and it burns for 2 hours. So I picked one of those up straight away.
Can I just say on the fire log thing? I saw those things, but I thought it's like a one-time use.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, it's not really going to have that much impact. I didn't want to waste one of my items on something that was kind of like one use.
And I picked up some fire lighters, some kerosene ones. First things I picked up, just because I've seen them, I was like, yeah, I'll have them. And then as I moved through the shop, they had like an umbrella, like a brolly, and it was tactical green as well, which was nice. But it's more guaranteed.
Lighters were good.
So, yeah. You didn't pick the fire lighters, did you?
I didn't know, because I forgot to. I purposely didn't look at that section because I thought that's all limited use. Whereas I thought we could use like more natural resources to get the fire going and burn and stuff, and have matches to light. But yeah, carry on. Yeah,
so fire lighting materials, the first thing I seen. Then there was like an umbrella, like a larger one, and I thought, well, I'll pick that up now because that could be a shelter option if I don't have anything else. Could potentially be used for multiple things, like I don't know, a walking stick if I really need it to be. Maybe not, I don't know. But then I think I got through to like where the medicines are and whatnot. There was actually a first aid kit there, but I didn't see that until like as we were leaving the shop.
Yeah, me.
I might have chose that just based on, you know, cleaning up boo-boos and stuff.
I find a lot of the first aid kits that you've like looked through and gone through in the shops before are really basic.
They're really basic. They're literally just for like, they're not very good actually at all. I always carry the medical multi-tool that I talk about for major stuff, but like having like just better kit in general for the minor stuff will get you a lot further. Maybe I'll do a video on that soon. But yeah, they're not very good generally speaking, the boo-boo kits. But if it was that or nothing, I would choose that. But I didn't choose that. I picked up the eucalyptus oil then, as I said before. I ended up putting that back later, but that's got multiple uses, and antibiotic uses even, topically speaking. It can open your airways if you've got asthma, congestion, all those sorts of things. But it's an insect repellent, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
It's also highly flammable, I believe, as well. So it could be used as a fire lighting thing. I picked up lighters as my fire lighting option, a multi-pack of like Bic lighters. There's multiple ways to start a fire with those, believe it or not, because there's a flint on it as well. So I chose those and I kept the fire lighters in the end, so that's my means of fire. As I moved through the shop, we got to the camping area, so then I chose a green tent, tactical green, very nice. That's also going to keep the insects out, and whilst I don't tend to use tents very often, I thought in this circumstance, if I've got nothing else, a tent will be the best option. Then I moved off from that area and I ended up trying to find a cutting tool. So I found some garden shears, didn't I?
We were really limited for cutting tools.
Yeah, really limited. There wasn't even a multi-tool, but it had like a little screw on it, and you could take apart the two blades for like resharpening it. So essentially, I've got two machetes. Like, it was like a good option. It was the bet. I think the scissors were good because they're concealable and
Yeah, the downside to yours is that they're really big.
Really big, and probably hard to carry and whatnot. But it would be ideal for shelter building because I could lop off limbs and stuff, or I could chop. Cordage, the only thing I could get was strimmer wire. I believe I already said that. It is quite strong, so it probably would work for snares as well, and fishing line and whatnot. 10-litre water carrier, just like Beth got. I also picked up a mess tin so that I can boil the water, and if I want to do it quickly, I can just light one of the fire lighters underneath it, and that'll get the water boiled really quickly, actually, just like the military do. And then I can just, you know, wait for that to cool and pour it straight into the 10-litre thing. Probably take me a short while to get that full and safe, but, you know, being able to carry 10 litres instead of just 1 litre is quite useful, or to have the capacity to do that at least. I actually picked up a flask like you did because I wanted both. I wanted the means to be able to have a litre of measurement so I could purify it easier, but all like from a measurement standpoint, metric standpoint.
I think you picked up the bigger flask.
Oh, okay, like 2 litre one.
I wanted the smaller one.
Having a flask as well is a good idea for longer term survival, because the means to be able to keep something cool or hot could save your life. Like when I lived off grid in the woods, it was in a bell tent, I had loads of flasks so that in the middle of the night, if I got cold, a hot water bottle, you know, I don't have to go out and restart a fire or something to get warm. It's a resource. I went back to the camping area and I picked up a sleeping bag, and I think I traded out, I think it was the eucalyptus oil for the sleeping bag, because I thought being in a tent is cold enough with a good sleeping bag, and the weather isn't necessarily warm. It was a 2-season sleeping bag. Better than nothing if I've got my clothes on inside it and whatnot. You know, at least I can stay a bit warmer, because hypothermia will kill you quicker than what insect bites will. So then it was a torch, and I almost forgot the key thing, didn't I? And you reminded me, which you probably shouldn't have. I wish I didn't. She told me, like, are you sure you don't need batteries for that? And I was like, it doesn't come with batteries, like.
You would have looked really stupid if I hadn't.
I would have looked stupid. And it just goes to show that, I mean, like, I've got a lot more experience than Beth has in this field, like in the survival field, you know, but in a frenzy and in a rush, you'll forget to read key bits of information like that. So yeah,
I think we approached it quite differently. I feel like you approached it more based on like a survival thing, you know, what was important for that. I approached it more on what we would need, but how we could not get caught by other people, because if something like that happened, everyone's looking for supplies and stuff. So I kind of like went, instead of the tent, I got the furniture cover, because I thought that was easier to conceal and kind of like blend in. I tried to opt for the mosquito repellent bands rather than like a spray or something. You know what else? Like, I just tried to have things that just drew less attention. Whereas like your items, like people, like the torch and stuff, I purposely didn't get that because I didn't want people. Yeah,
it's a very good point you've made on the torch, actually, because white light travels very far. Like, if you've seen my snow blizzard video, you'll see that when I'm spinning that torch around it, you can see it. You'd see it from miles away potentially. So, but the reason why I got the torch was because, let's say the shit hit the fan. That is a self-defense tool that is better than most things. I can't recreate light. So if I shine that in someone's eyes in the middle of the night when they're approaching, they're blinded now, and I can attack them with my offhand. You know, I've blinded them temporarily, essentially. It's also a signaling tool. I can communicate with it in the dark, obviously. You know, I can send Morse code to someone. Video coming up on that soon, if the other person knows the Morse code, that is. But also it gives me the means to travel through dark spaces. Like, it might be that I need to go into a cave to be safer, or I need to create a shelter after dark because I've been caught out. So having the means to do that, in my mind, is good. And the batteries are also a fire lighting tool if I've got the right equipment. So yeah, sorry, I went off on a tangent about the torch.
So like, from my from what I got, what would you swap of mine? What is your like least favourite?
From what you've got? Probably the multivitamins. I think that I think the multivitamins, the hydrocortisone is useful, but for initial survival.
The multivitamins are a bit of a waste.
I think that you've got a point about the tent and whatnot, but because the tent will stand out a little bit more, even though it is still green, and it takes time to put up and put down, whereas like a tarp like Beth's talking about, you could quickly rip that out and, you know, get going and get on the move. But it's difficult because it depends on the situation. Like, I chose items which, based on my experiences, would be the quickest and easiest to employ. You know, this is why, like, I chose a Bic lighter, because given that I keep them dry, they're not going to fail. Like, it's going to give me fire in seconds, not minutes.
Yeah.
So the way I see it with fire is a Bic lighter or a match will give me a flame in seconds.
And with your firelighters as well.
Yeah.
That's a good option.
Whereas a flint and steel can take me minutes. It can take me realistically, guys, like, the video makes it look easy, but it can take 5 minutes. It can take, you know, someone who's not as well versed, it can take them up to 30 minutes to get a flint and steel going, and they might fail at that. And a bow drill, you're looking at hours. So, you know, fire can be the difference between life and death.
And sometimes that's if it's dry. If it's wet, it's a whole other problem.
Definitely.
So with the firelighters, they're gonna light.
Yeah. And, you know, if you've got some kind of shelter that you can wrap around yourself, like in the snow blizzard, a firelighter could keep you alive for sure.
Yeah. If I was going to swap something of yours, I would swap the strimmer wire.
Okay.
I don't
for?
know. I don't know what I would swap it for, but I would just get rid of that, because I feel like you can find some kind of cordage option, like out and about.
I don't know, it all depends on where you're scavenging and whatnot. I would, if I had to give up an item of mine, I would probably, if I had to give up one of those items, it would probably be, I don't know actually, yeah, I think maybe, but cordage is super important.
I just feel like it's easier to fashion cordage, find something that could work.
Potentially, yeah, potentially.
Whereas
it's
like
difficult.
A water carrier or other things, not so easy.
Yeah, but I think the key takeaway from it, guys, is I think everyone who watches this, if you want to have some fun with it, go and give this a go, because you never know when you're going to be in that situation where, I remember when COVID hit, like, a lot of people were panic buying, and I was living in London at the time, and I didn't really have a lot at home, and I thought to myself, I could be in trouble if I don't pick up just whatever I can. And it's not the right mindset to be in, but imagine if, like, an EMP struck, you know, right now, what would you do? You know, you wouldn't be watching my video for one, because that wouldn't work. But what would your first items be? And then also, if you're building a bug out kit from scratch, do this exercise and pick the 10 most important items.
Because, you'll be surprised, because we didn't opt for any kind of food or energy kind of
you just don't have
resource.
time for it,
And maybe if we'd have gone around the shop backwards, we would have felt like something was more important.
Yeah.
But
if there was one thing that I could chop and change, I was looking for condoms, like packs of condoms, and I would change that out for the torch, potentially even. You can do all sorts with condoms, so you can make a slingshot, you could make bowlers, which is a primitive weapon, which is to catch like larger game. You can make a self-defense weapon by putting a rock in it. You can tourniquet with it if you've got a few of them. You can do so many things with condoms. With the water storage front, you know, if it's a non-lubricated condom, you can unroll it and then it will store up to 1 litre of water minimum, unless you've got like the big Magnum ones. I think they're called something, I don't know what they're called. You know, so you can store water in them as well, and then you would just put that into a sock to keep it safe from like being punctured by rocks and whatnot. So there's loads of uses for condoms, but I didn't see any, so that was one thing that I kept my eye open for. Yeah, but it is what it is.
Definitely worth doing, thinking about what items you would get and having an idea. And also, ours was only like a fun little challenge, but it was good to discuss each other's options and why. But also, when you go into the shop and you're trying to find those items, it was really hard.
It is hard, yeah, because you don't know the layout of the shop. If it's your local shop, you might know a little bit better, but...
Well, we did a little bit, but
yeah.
I think I felt a bit pressured because I knew you needed to come in and you were sat waiting. And obviously the staff and stuff watching us go back and forth up and down the aisles multiple times, so it probably looked a bit weird, but it was really hard, and I can't imagine how hard it would be in the kind of situation
yeah,
that we were talking about.
You know, that's the reason why you need to be prepared, guys. This is why I could talk to you all day about just initial survival or bushcraft or, you know, different things of improvisation, but being prepared, like I was talking about the fire front, if you've got like different means of creating fire, I always carry a Bic lighter, a flint and steel, and generally speaking, I might even carry like something to start a fire easier as well, like some kind of fuel source, like tumble dryer, fluff or lint or whatever they call it, because that with a flint and steel goes up really well. So carrying multiple means of surviving on the different fronts, you've got to cover the 5 C's first: combustion, cutting tool, cordage, cover from the elements, and a container, a metal container that you can boil water in and cook food in. Those are the most fundamental things that you need, and then thereafter you can start looking at more advanced things. But yeah,
I think also rule 3, or whatever rule it was, where we said about having to have something to carry in, it kind of went out the window a bit because there wasn't any kind of backpacks or anything like that.
That's true, yeah.
But we both had the idea that we would put things in our sleeping bag,
roll it up, yeah,
or kind of like use something that we've got. So I had my like tarp thing that I could put stuff in and create something to tie around it and hold everything in. So we kind of bent that rule a little bit.
Yeah.
But
you know, and what would be even more interesting would be to actually go out and test the items that you've got. But like I say, this is like just the raw sort of survival. This is getting you from this is just keeping you alive, like, because you're just buying stuff on the fly. Some of it would keep you alive for a while, but you know, yeah, it's not a quick fix. You know, well, I'd say it is a quick fix. It's not a long-term solution, I should say.
So I think if this video is good, we could do a few different versions. Trying out different kinds of stores. You mentioned a few different kinds of stores, and
yeah, like everything from like more of a normal conventional supermarket with just more food and cleaning items and just general household items. You know, what would you pick in that circumstance? What would you pick from an army surplus store? That would be probably much more ideal than what we were working with as well. There's loads of... You can actually just do this mentally in your mind when you walk into a shop. You can be like, what could I choose? If I had to choose 5 items in this shop right now, 10 items, what would be the most likely to keep me alive? You know, survival isn't just about survive. It's a mindset. Like the more you develop the mindset, in my opinion, the better off you're going to be.
It reminds me of that little book I've got, and it's got lists of every kind of store you might come into.
Oh yeah, of course.
And what it might have stocked in there, because some things you wouldn't think of, but
for scavenging.
Yeah, it's really good, and that kind of reminds me of this challenge.
Absolutely, and that's another thing. So having checklists of things that you need or that you need to take with you, like that's part of our bug out plan.
Maybe we should tag that book below or something.
Could
it's a good idea.
Yeah.
You can create your own lists in it as well, so you can make it specific to where you are, write things that you might get, or do this kind of thing. We know what's shops around here, we could write them specific to that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's worth giving this challenge a go, even if it's not like a challenge and you're not doing a video. It's good to feel the pressure and actually think, oh no, I'm restricted to 10 items, what can I get?
And you're restricted as to what the shop sells as well, because if you imagine like there's been looting and whatnot, and that maybe there's one shop that's left that hasn't been looted, maybe, you know, for whatever reason you still have to buy things from there in a civilised manner. Maybe, you know, in a real bad situation you're looting. I'm not condoning that because it's really bad. But, you know, what would you grab? What are your first priorities?
And things you want to think of is things that have multiple options, because the things that are going to be gone are the obvious things that all the normal people will have grabbed.
Yeah, toilet paper.
Yeah.
Toilet paper.
And a lot of the food will have gone. But certain things, like how many people would have grabbed what I grabbed, that outdoor furniture cover? Everyone would have gone for like a tent or something like that.
Yeah, possibly.
You know.
And yeah, there's pros and cons to both on that front as well, but most people won't think about items like you say.
Just alternative things.
Yeah.
And that's what's important, to maybe think, well, these things are going to go first, so what can we use instead of?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, I think we've gone into quite a lot of detail on it all. Really hope you guys like the challenge. I mean, just to prove that we do carry important things, here's a multi-tool just in case something ever goes wrong in the car, and the car medical kit is right here. There's videos on the car medical kit. It's our first video, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. After the intro videos, it's one of the first videos we put up, which we can link at the end of this video.
So just saying, you know, same as the EDC that I always carry, like, you should always be prepared, because you don't want to be that person that has to pick from 10 items, you know, and you, like Beth just said, you might be picking the ones that, you know, most people don't think of, or the less desirable items. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you had as much fun watching it as we did doing it, and as much fun as Beth is going to have editing this video for hours on end. Drop us a comment, let us know what you think, and let us know if you're going to do this, or if you actually do your own video on this, then please do send it to us, or let us know that you've done it, because I'm really, really keen to see what other people have come up with, because it'd be super interesting. So yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, and until next time.